Arithmetic Course Review. Welcome to the Arithmetic Course Review. In this video, we'll go through a concise recap of the entire arithmetic course. A quick walkthrough to refresh your memory of the key ideas. Before we begin, a short note. There are useful topics related to arithmetic that we haven't covered in this course. For example, an introduction to basic geometry and common shapes. That material will be offered in a separate, dedicated geometry course. Now, let's briefly review the main concepts from the course to help you spot any gaps and refresh what you've learned. Arithmetic. We began the course by explaining the etymology of the word arithmetic and giving a clear definition. Numbers. Next, we moved on to introduce numbers. These are the 10 digits we use to build every number. Brief history of numbers. After that, we gave you a quick overview of the history of numbers, from the Sumerians to the ancient Romans. You can see here the numerals used by each civilization. Then, we covered the Indo-Arabic numerals we use today and how they led to modern notation. This here is Al-Khwarizmi, while here we have Sir Isaac Newton, Descartes, and Leibniz. Numerical systems. Different bases change how place value works. Binary is base 2, octal is base 8, and decimal is base 10, and so on. At the end, we look at an old Sumerian counting method that used the finger phalanges, which are these segments of the finger. Numbers from 0 to a trillion. We also review numerical magnitudes from 0 up to 1 trillion. A large but finite range, of course, since there are infinitely many numbers overall. You can write these large numbers in different ways: without separators, with a space every 3 digits, or using a comma for clarity. Operations. The fundamental operations of arithmetic are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Everything in basic arithmetic is built on these 4 operations. Times tables. Times tables allows us to remember the multiplications from 1 to 10 quickly. Properties. The properties of operations are rules that describe how the order and grouping of operands affect the result. Here is a summary table showing which properties apply to each operation. And here are the formulaic statements for each property. Negative numbers. Here we have negative numbers and some example operations with them. For multiplication and division with negative numbers, remember, same signs give a positive result. Different signs give a negative result. Factors and multiples. A factor divides a number exactly. That is, with remainder 0. A multiple is a product of that number. Use factors to find the greatest common divisor, GCD, and multiples to find the least common multiple, LCM. Even and odd. Even numbers are divisible by 2 with no remainder. Odd numbers are not. Prime and composite numbers. Prime numbers have exactly 2 divisors, 1 and themselves. Composite numbers have more than 2 divisors. Prime factorization is the basis for finding the greatest common divisor, GCD, the least common multiple, LCM, and for many mathematical proofs. Fractions. A fraction represents parts of a whole. The numerator, the number above the line, over the denominator, the number below the line. Here we have the types of fractions: proper, improper, and mixed. Equivalent fractions show the same value using different numbers. For example, all of these fractions here correspond to the value of 1/2. The greatest common divisor, GCD, is the largest factor 2 or more numbers share. The least common multiple, LCM, is the smallest multiple common to those numbers. To multiply fractions, multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. To divide, invert the second fraction. That is, take the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then multiply. Rationalization removes a radical from the denominator. Multiply a fraction by a form of 1 that places the radical in both numerator and denominator. Using the property of square roots, this eliminates the root from the denominator. Arithmetic mean and weighted average. Arithmetic mean, the sum of the values divided by the number of values. Weighted average. Multiply each value by its weight. Sum those products. Then divide by the total weight. Useful when some parts count more than others. Median. The median is the middle value in an ordered list. If there is an even number of elements, the median is the arithmetic mean of the two middle values. Powers. A power is repeated multiplication of the same number. The base is the number being multiplied, and the exponent tells how many times to multiply it. Here are some common mistakes people make when working with powers. This is a summary of the rules and properties of exponents. Order of operations. These are acronyms to remember the order of operations and the reminders for the sequence in which to perform mathematical operations. Logarithms. A logarithm is the exponent to which a fixed base must be raised to produce a given number. Here's a summary of the properties of logarithms. Decimals. This chart shows the decimal separator, the symbol placed between the integer and decimal parts, usually a dot or a comma, and how it's used in different countries. These are the four basic operations with decimals: addition, subtraction, align the decimal points, multiplication, multiply as if there were integers, then reinsert the decimal point, division, shift the decimals to eliminate fractional places, then divide. Repeating decimals. Repeating decimals are numbers whose decimal part repeats indefinitely. Notation for repeating decimals varies by country. The notation we use here is the vinculum, a bar placed over the repeating digits. Radicals. A radical is the inverse operation of exponentiation, represented by the radical sign. It indicates taking a root of a number or expression. Here's a summary of the properties of radicals. Percentages. Percent means per hundred. You can convert a percent to a fraction by writing it over 100 and simplifying, and convert between percent and decimal by dividing or multiplying by 100. Ratios and proportions. Ratios compare quantities. Proportions set two ratios equal. Cross multiplication is the standard method to find the unknown term in a proportion. Here's a summary of the properties of proportions. Sets. A set is a collection of distinct elements. You can define a set either by listing its elements between curly braces or by giving a rule that describes membership. Sets of numbers. These are the sets of numbers and the relations between them. Units of measurement and conversions. These are the base units of the International System of Units, SI. These are the SI prefixes. Prefixes scale units by powers of 10, making very large or very small values easier to read. Long and short scales. The long scale and the short scale are two different naming systems for numbers larger than a million. This map shows which countries use the long scale, which use the short scale, and where alternative naming conventions are used. Conversions. To convert from one unit to another, multiply or divide depending on the direction of the conversion. For example, to convert grams to kilograms, that is, from a smaller unit to a larger one, divide by 1000. Equivalently, move the decimal point 3 places to the left. To convert from grams to milligrams, from a larger unit to a smaller one, multiply. In this case, multiply by 1000. temperature scales. These are the formulas to convert between the three main temperature scales: Kelvin, Celsius, and Fahrenheit. This is a summary of the main imperial units, grouped by category: length, volume, and weight. Special cases of arithmetic. Here are some special cases of arithmetic. Division by zero is undefined. 0 divided by any non-zero number equals 0. Dividing by 1 leaves a number unchanged. For any non-zero n raised to the power of 0 equals 1. The expression 0 raised to the power of 0 is indeterminate in many contexts. In some specific contexts, it is defined as 1, so treat it with care. N raised to the power of 1 equals n. This completes the review of the Arithmetic course. Thank you for watching the entire series. If you'd like to download the full printable slides, the exercises, and the final cheat sheet, you can find everything on Gumroad. Link in the description and in a pinned comment. Thank you again for following the course. See you in the next series.